会到几点？我可能中午前这样。快。好，因为我中午才会转来唱。你为什么会唱？你在一楼。4楼啊。帮我拿给谁？好，OK， 好，OK。
Hello to everyone. Let me start our today's session. My name is Elena Ponomareва. I am from FISU Education Committee. And today this is my responsibility to start and to open and then to start our working day. And before this, taking the opportunity to be here on the stage, I would like to thank you, the organizing committee, and the people of the city Taipei for your hospitality and for welcoming us here in Taipei. Thank you very much. And the first topic, the first session we start with is values in sport. During today's session, we will deal with two speeches devoted to different items, but referring to the same idea. And I would like to ask you to be very active during our session, because it starts very early. And I hope that everyone had enough strong coffee to be active today, because today we have very tough program, and I have my colleague, moderator of the first session, who will assist me in the question and answering part of our first session. Let me introduce my colleague. Professor Dr. Jin Rong Lin, the Chief Executive Office of National Sports Training Center. He will join us after the first speech in the session of questions and answers. And the first topic of our today's session will be devoted to a very important part of values in sport. And we all know that sport is very different for every one of us. We can think a lot of different things when we meet sport episodes, sport practice, and athletes personally or corporative. And we know that doping is not only a legal problem for everyone, it also refers to values, to fair play, to rules, to different cultures, and to many other things. And just imagine how much a person, a professional person who deals with such aspects, how much he or she must know about sports and the legacy. And it's my pleasure to introduce you this person who is very professional in legacy in sports and who deals with all these items, not only legally, but in all other aspects as well. This is Dr. Attorney at Law, Advocate Solicitor from Poland, from Wrocław University. This is a very professional, a friend of mine, and I would say, to be very short, this is not only the lady of the Lord, this is athlete, she is activist, she is very professional, and she is just pretty woman. Renata Popczuk, you are welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Elena, for introduction to me. I was surprised that I'm a great person. So great person, I didn't know that. So, it's a really big pleasure for me to be here. First of all, I would like to express my sincere appreciation for the organizing committee, for the Taipei Summer University Conference Organizing Committee, and of course to the Education Committee, FISU Education Committee, for organizing this nice, this excellent event. I'm so glad, as I said before, I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so glad to be a part of this conference. It's a pleasure for me, as I say. So once again, thank you to all of you. Today, as the chairwoman says, I will try to briefly inform you about the legal and not only illegal problem of the doping, legal context of the doping issue in sports. It's important that when I use a term of sports, I mean, of course, all types of sports. So I mean the amateur sports, I mean the professional sports, I mean also an academic sports. It's important because many of people think that doping is only a problem in a high-level sports. That's not true. We have doping on all level of sports, even in e-sports. We've got the problem with doping. My presentation aims at a discussion concerning the place of doping normative and ethical regulation in the legal area, international legal area. In the fact, these are some of my reflections, some of my postulates, some of my propositions in this topic. The topic for my presentation, as you can see on the slides, is doping. Is it only a legal problem? It's a really specific problem, and I think it's a good point for the discussion about the value in sport. So, firstly, it will be some short introduction in this topic. Then I'm going to tell you about the anti-doping policy. I also try to explain findings about social and ethical aspect of doping in sports. And the end of my speech, which will take about, I think, 25 minutes, after the summary, I will be happy to answer any question if you may have any. The anti-doping policy, we have to remember that over the past few decades we have witnesses a constant struggle for the quality of sports, what is no doubt a result of commercialization and professionalization of sport, and consequently the moral weakened construction this sphere of human life. One of the most significant battle is taking place on the legal, but not only legal, field, and paths to doping, which in a way has its roots in the aspiration for perfection, so citus, altitus, foritus. However, the aspiration breaches legal regulations. Doping creates situations when sports not longer educates, but corrupts. Fair play is vanishing. It's not longer the most valuable and prominent moral rules. Of course, there is no doubt that the doping is one of the biggest threats to sport competition based on fair play basis. This is one of the most controversial issues in sports. It violates general principles of fair competition, poses a danger to health, and puts sport under enormous social pressure. The doping ban severs primarily three goals of global dimensions. They guarantee equality during competition, to protect health of the athletes, and to preserve social value of sports. Therefore, all these goals together should be taken into account when creating regulation to combat doping. Sports activity is a subject of increasing numerous legal regulation, and doping, as we know, is not accepted here. The scale of threat that doping phenomenon poses on sport was first observed by the international environment at the turn on the 20th and 21st century. At this time, the efforts aimed at harmonizing and anti-doping normative regulations were intensified. The legislative work in this area was essential, in particular in the context of a non-transparent, I can say, patchwork of competences, sanctions, and lists of banned substances, which had been developed over many years by the numerous sports associations, and now the issue of sports engineering were adopted to this bottomless pit. I say about the sport engineering because I think it's another one problem in doping. The techno-doping is a part of the doping. For me, it's a part of the doping. It's a legal problem, but it's also the ethical problem when we talk about the values in sports. This issue has become a larger scale international anti-doping policy, which in the recent years it is seen with a growing skepticism. Not so long ago, the whole world, not just a sports world, witnesses a dramatic fall of one of the most recognizability sports heroes in the world. I mean, Louis Armstrong. Also quite recent is also the case of another well-known sportsman, Oscar Pistorius. Techno-doping or not techno-doping, which is involves a problem issue aspects, the technology, new technology in sports, which is also a part of transhumanist conception in sport. Doping is a field on which various concepts of states and international interventionism in the sports sphere are clashed. Moreover, the quality of sports, apart from being determined by legal and organizational regulation, is at the same time also defended by the athletes themselves. They, however, more often than not, treat their sport discipline as a profession, which is a consequence of often involves stimulation in the form of use illicit means to increasing human affectionateness and affectionism. At this point, I would like to return to the credo of the Olympics. The important thing in the games is not winning, but it's taking part in the competition. Unfortunately, we can see during this time that this credo is not the most important thing in the sport. Now, the important thing in a sport we can see that it's winning, not only attending. The anti-doping policy is a complex and multi-threaded concept. One of the first international organizations to combine the phenomenon of doping in sport, and which played a significant role in this field in the second half of the 20th century, was Council of Europe. It was an impulse for the international environment to act on fighting against doping, and it launched mechanisms to encourage the interest of this issue. As I say, the definition of doping's policy includes a lot of many-sided problems as well, multi-treated. Doping in sport is an interdisciplinary issue. Because doping in doctrine was defined in a different ways, I would like to say a few words about that. We have to go on to the Council of Europe Anti-Doping Convention, because according with the Article 2 of this convention, by doping in sport should be understood the administration to sport or sportwomen or the use by them of pharmacological classes of doping agents or doping methods. The convention was accompanied by an annex containing a list of banned pharmacological classes, doping agents and doping methods. The definition of doping formulated in World Anti-Doping Code by the World Anti-Doping Agency, I mean WADA. I'm happy that Irina is here and hope that will be a nice discussion about this part of value in sport and about doping in sport. So, according with the this act, and according with the International Convention Against Doping in Sport, I mean UNESCO Convention, in the light of the UNESCO Convention, doping is evaluation of the anti-doping rules, which includes one or more the issue in the convention, like example, the presence of prohibited substance or its metabolism or markers in athletic bodily specimen. Therefore, anti-doping policy has three main goals to achieve. In the first place, there should be equability between the competitors. Second, healthcare of people who are involved in sport and should be much more developed field. People should realize how important it is to keep sport as a social value. The anti-doping policy should definitely include all of these mentioned issues. They should think about all of them. In the individual countries, the issue of doping may be covered by national legal regulation, international regulation, as well as by the rules originating from the principles applicable in sports organization. Actions to combine doping in sport are the only problem directly related to sports activity, which has been to a great extent covered by international law. Currently, the binding acts of international law from combating and preventing doping in sports are the Anti-Doping Convention of the Council of Europe. I mean conventions from 1989 and the UNESCO Convention adopted in 2005. Both conventions impose on the state parties numerous obligations directly or indirectly related to anti-doping policy, the implementation which requires adopting of specific solution in the legislation of the signatory states. Something happened, okay? Excuse me. Signatory states. Well, I talk about the relationships between the anti-doping convention of WADA, anti-doping convention of Council of Europe, and UNESCO anti-doping convention, because I think it's really important to show the relations between these acts. In the context on international regulation, the rules developed within WADA framework should be followed also. This norm, although they are treated about international law, order of sports movement, because WADA position in the international arena and the recognition of its completes, by example, the Committee of the Ministry of the Council of Europe in 2002, as well as the content of the Article 4 of UNESCO Convention, in the light which the state parties are required to conduct the anti-doping policies, accordance with provision of the World Anti-Doping Code, and should be considered relevant for the discussion matter. In the context of the legal grounds for combining doping in sports relationships between World Anti-Doping Code and UNESCO Convention is crucial. It's also important to indicate the fundamental difference between the legal act adopted within UNESCO and the Council of Europe. While the Council of Europe Anti-Doping Convention has no reference to WADA activities, the UNESCO Convention recognizes the mission being realized by the organization. However, in the contrast of the Council of Europe Anti-Doping Convention, UNESCO Convention has a global coverage, what has a significant impact of the perception of the provision contained in states, although the significant Copenhagen Declaration on Anti-Doping Sports, which provide, in example, adopting and implementing of World Anti-Doping Code and cooperation on the partnerships basis between the states, sport organization and WADA, they have never become a part of the World Anti-Doping Code. At this point, it has to be known that the international sports organization, which include International Olympic Committee, which include World Anti-Doping Agency, which include also FISU, should be counted as a separate doctrine of international law in the category of international non-governmental organization. International sports organizations are not a legal entities in international law, but they are corporate bodies operating on the basis of the law of the country of the seats. In terms of formal and legal issue, it means the regulation established by them are not a part of the international law. They are not a part of the international legal order. They have the character of norms only within the organization. However, taking into account their specialized character in efficient way, they affect legislation of individual countries. We have to also remember that sport activities connected with social and political aspects, which correlates with increasing deeper relations between entities occurring in sports market. Have in mind what I said just for a moment. I think that I can say the WADA, World Anti-Doping Code, is a document harmonizing anti-doping policy in all sports and all countries, which can actually names private norms or, on the other hand, public norms. We can say that it sources the character mix. It means that there's the problem to say, is it a law or it's not a law? CAS, the Tribunal of Arbitrating for Sport, for example, in the opinion for the Italian Olympic Committee, says that WADA is original, unique element of international law, and it reflects public and private segment in sport, which is really important for us as a sportsman, as people who like to watch the competitions, because it's also important in aspects when we would like to talk about, for example, human rights in sport, connected to human rights in sport. Being conducting a debate on doping, it is impossible not to refer to social and ethical aspects of doping, as well as a transhumanism, which is a strongly linked to a modern technology. I know that yesterday we've got some startups here and show us some new elements which we can use during the competition, which we can use in a sports. So the foundation of the transhumanist ideology is nothing else but a postulate of liberalization of an individual from the restriction determined by his biological structure through the tools of modern technology. In other words, both of the conception of transhumanism and modern social look at the doping are inspirable from the pursuit of perfection. So we back to the ancient idea, we back to the Olympic idea, situs, altitus, foritus. And the above mentioned World Anti-Doping Code does not only specify strictly anti-doping provision, but also seeks to develop sports, at the same time highlighting education role of programs, which goal is to combine doping along with the promotion of value in sports, among the values that exemplify one of the programs, the spirit of sports, are listed in example honestly and health, as well as a fair play principles, fun and joy, dedication, and commitment, respect for the rules and for the law, as well as respect themselves and other athletes, courage, community, and solidarity. However, in many cases, currently to the Olympic value, what wins in the victory and not the participation. Athletes are rewarded for winning at virtually every level of competition. Second place is viewed as a first loser. So they don't say that I am a silver medal, they say that I am first loser. It means that there is a problem with the relation, with the idea, with the ancient idea of Olympics, with the ancient idea of sports. A coach's job security is directly related to his term success, not they are simply fighting well. That athletes are often crammed in a set and fair, simplified shame of thinking about doping. This assumes that science, all athletes use the prohibited means to achieve better results than competitors who do not use them, and they successfully avoid doping controls. Therefore, the athletes that do not use the supportive measures should also start using them. Therefore, the issue of unfair competition as a result of wrong thinking that the best result in sports can only be achieved through doping rather than intensive work. And slowly going to the end, there is no doubt that sports, even on the Olympic level, is not free of doping. It's a normal for every day. Doping is a normal for every day in sports. On the one hand, we have sports as a created and rise of idea of novel rivalry in the theory, condemning an act and fraud, and on the other hand, we have social consensus to evaluate these ideas. Thus, there is some dissonance between the postulates, ethical standards, and the social reality. Where does this divergence come from? It's, I think, a good question, because I think that we should back to the ancient time and we should think what happened with a sport during this time. However, it may be used to solve these problems inside the sports sphere and the whole society, to propagate social ideas such as teamwork, fair play competition, cooperation, tolerance, and solidarity. Of course, the issue of doping in sport must be considered from various points of view, which results from political, ethical, social, and economic role of sports. To sum up, it ought to be also considered whether the discussion on doping in sports should go beyond the recent popular question. I usually ask my clients and my chamber when we talk about the problems in doping, this question. The question is, who was the watchman? I mean, WADA here. Who was the WADA during the doping problem? And also when we talk about the values in sport, when we talk about the problems with doping, it's also important to have remember that we have to be careful about the double standards in doping. We have to be careful about the double standards in sports, because it's really easy to say that you are on doping or not. And the question is, what is really doping now? Exactly. When I start my presentation, I start to talk also about the new technology and about the techno-doping. Is techno-doping a doping, or is it just a new technology? Is techno-doping is a future or not? What we can do with this in a future? This is the last question. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. So thank you for attention. Thank you to be here. If you've got any questions, I try to answer for them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Renata. Any question? So we have 8 minutes left. So
thank you.
okay.
I don't think that we have social consent to use dubbing. I noticed past several months or years, we find out a player athlete got gold medal. Can you hear? Can you hear me? Okay. I noticed that an athlete might face doping penalty after 4 or 6 years. I noticed what's the theoretical background to allow the athlete to play, win the gold medal or silver medal, and after 3 or 4 years, you tell the athlete you violated doping, so your championship, your gold medal was eliminated. What's the theoretical background to delay or double or triple test after doping test after 3 or 4 years?
The problem is that I didn't hear your question, so maybe I can come closer and understand the question, because the truth is that I don't hear anything here.
My question is this. Anti-doping is a principle that we all want to abide by. But I noticed in the past several years, I noticed as a sociologist, I found out some athlete got gold medal from Olympic Games. But 2 or 3 years later, even 4 years later, he or she was announced doping. So eliminated, canceled his gold medal or silver medal. What's the theoretical background after several years to come back and test the person in the samples in the game?
Okay,
I think he's asking what's the time frame after which you win a gold medal when you can go back to retest, and if someone is convicted of doping or they win a gold medal, but later within how many years can you go back to retest for doping?
I think it's a good question, not to me as a lawyer, because usually I am on the side of a sportsman, and I always say that it shouldn't be like this when I am a lawyer. But it's a good question, I think, to Erin. She is a part of WADA. For me, the legal regulation, how long we can back with the testing, I know it's a good option to back for the testing. For me personally, the good option for sport is to think that when we finish the competition, we've got just a short time to check the testing, to check if someone was on a doping, because even if we've got the situation like now, like for the Polish sportsmen that just 2 weeks ago they hearing that, okay, you've got a medal about the London Olympic Games. It doesn't make, for me, it doesn't make any sense, because it's not this atmosphere, it's not this time. So I know that cheating is wrong, but we have to also think about the vision of the sports. So it's a good question for WADA. For me, it should be not longer than a few months.
Okay, over there.
Yeah, thank you. Raj, Raj from Botswana. Is it fair to give people who cheat a chance to compete again? Because once you are caught, you're a cheat. Why are you giving a chance to come back and compete? I don't think it's fair. I don't know. Just a question. Thank you.
Do you want to know my personal opinion, or do you want to know what is general thinking? The general thinking is not that we should say no, it's not fair. But in my personal opinion, as a lawyer, as I said before, I think that we should give the people the second chance, also sometimes the third chance, and so on and so on. Because we are only a people. So sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we know that we make mistakes, sometimes we don't know that we make mistakes. So cheating is unfair, but we are a human, so we have to think really open. We have to be really open for the ideas. The problem is with for me, the problem is with the regulations, because they are not so clear. Sorry, Irina, but I think that the WADA code, anti-doping WADA code, is not so clear. Because usually we have the idea of the highest level, we haven't got an idea of the less levels. We've got many examples, like we talked today in the morning, for example, if you have a naturally high testosterone, is it a doping or not? We should fight with this or not? Because sometimes it's natural, yeah? That's the problem, and sometimes for me, not the association, the international association, think only like black and white. And for me as a lawyer, law is only a gray. It's same situation in a doping. Doping is only a gray. We haven't got white and black colors in a doping.
Any question? All right. This session now. Okay. Over there? I'm sorry.
I'm just wondering, some countries in Europe are looking at making doping a criminal act now, so I wonder what your opinion about that is, with instead of sanctioning dopers, to this movement to make it actually a criminal act.
I am a lucky one because Poland has this act, and it's not a new act. This act has got about 10 years, and before we haven't got a specializing act, we have got also some articles in the criminal code. For me, it's a good idea, but we have to remember that it only criminalizing the doping in the situation when someone gives you, not if you take along. In Polish act, this is the crime. In the other side, it's out of the legal system. As I said before, it's in the option of the sports organization. But I think it's a good idea, especially for the young sportsmen. I know also that Ms. Chairman is from Russia, but I know also that they've got also the doping act in Russia. We cooperate with the Ministry of Sports in Russia in this act, and for me it's a good idea when we talk about the young sportsmen.
May I also ask a question, please? Renata, thank you very much for your resume of the situation, and from your speech we understood that doping is a very many meaning sphere, and we never know from what point to start to decide to make a decision or to solve a problem, from legal, cultural, social or ethic. But summarizing this, could you please give some recommendations to the young athletes, what they should do or they should not do in order not to be in a difficult situation in their professional career? Just simple words, please. Thanks.
It's difficult to say it in a simple words because it's not a simple case. The better thing will be when they can trust their coaches, but sometimes it is impossible because we know what happened in a sport. But what I always say to my clients when we have the doping case, I say, you have to be smart, you have to be clever, you have to always ask, okay, what is this? Can I take this? Why I should take this? So just many questions. I know that they should concentrate only about the training, but we are living in a time when unfortunately we have to ask. So this is my recommendation, ask what has happened. And what is important for me, what I said before also, the problem for me is in the legal aspects of the anti-doping regulation, because they are not so clear. We've got many problems. I mentioned about the human rights in sports. I mentioned about the relations between human rights and World Anti-Doping code. The problem is that usually, for example, just last sentence, the problem is that usually when we've got a crime code, like in the national regulation, the person who said that I am guilty have to show that I am guilty. In WADA system, I have to show that I'm not guilty. That's something abnormal for me. I know that it's a better situation for the anti-doping organization, but it's a not normal situation for the sports people. They are not the lawyers. They are just a sportsman. Sometimes they don't know how they can fight with this, because it's easy to say, yeah, you are guilty. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We'd like to thank you, our speaker, Renata. And we have also a small gift. Renata, this is for you from FISU Education Committee and FISU. Thank you very much. And please be seated with us to continue. And we continue our session devoted to the values in sport. It seems to me that the question of values is not so clear for everyone, for us, especially talking about the values for athletes, for coaches, for governments, for general people, for culture, and all other things. And have you ever thought what is values, in fact? Just try to think about it, and the first idea which occurs to your heads may differ in different situations. Some one of you imagine friendship, family, life, or someone starts thinking about food or security or about something else. And would you ever thought that values can be tangible or intangible? We can take something or we cannot, but we have it. Just imagine how it can be. It's a question to discuss. And to do this, I invite our next speaker, Professor of Physical Education, Vice President of the National Taiwan Sports University, Mr. Chi Huang Wan. Welcome on the stage.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for the invitation to come over here and to share with you my views on the value of sports. Before I start my presentation today, I have to say that I'm sorry I was late today. I came here, I left my home about before 8 o'clock, and it usually takes about 30 minutes to get here. So it took me an hour and 15 minutes. There was a car accident, not me though, not me, but I'm sorry for being late. And also, I would like to say Happy Valentine's Day to you today. For those of you who are visitors to Taiwan, how many of you knows it is a Valentine's Day today in Taiwan? Raise your hands. Well, for those of you who are, you don't have to raise your hand, you know. But you know, for the international friends, I would like to extend my wish to you, and please send my regards back home to your loved ones back home. It's a lovely Valentine's Day here in Taiwan today. There are two lone stars in the sky. One of them is Vega, the other one is Altair. And they separate so far away, and the most close proximity of those two stars getting to the most closely together will be today. So today, a lone star to meet each other once a year. That's why we call it a Valentine's Day for the loved ones. So happy Valentine's Day. Coming back to the value of sports. When I received the invitation to talk about the value of sport, I really didn't know what to say. Because as an athlete myself, I compete and I perform and I study. There are so many things went through my mind to think about the value of sports. So today I'm going to talk to you or present to you my views on the value of sports, something that are tangible, something that are intangible. And always there are everything else in the world, there are good sides of them, and there are some, I wouldn't say bad, but some not so good side of sports. Let's take a look of how many sides they can talk about. And I'm not more smart, or I'm not smarter than any one of you here. I am not a philosopher. I cannot bring more insight of the value of sports to you today. However, I'm just bringing out my view of sports, and hopefully you can keep those in mind, and someday, somehow, when you came across those situations, and think about what we talked about today, and you may have some different views on that issue. Okay? When it comes to sports value, we think about competition, we think about victory, we think about athletic competitions, we think about trophies, and that's good. For the last few days in the university competition, there are so many medals awarded to those winners. We all look at those joy side, we all look at those bright side and the glory side of competition, but is that the only thing we see they are in the sports competition? And sometimes think, well, doing exercise makes me happy. Well, based on some medical studies, it shows after some light, continuous exercise, it will change how you feel about yourself, both on psychological point of view and also from physiological point of view. So people may think, good, exercise is good for me, it make me happy. But, true? Have you thought about those people who don't stand on the awarding stand? For those who lost, they worked so hard. And think about those videos, those photos you've seen, those when they fell down, when they get hurt, and they cry. They spend so much of their time and energy to prepare for one major competition, yet at the end, they came out empty hands. And those agonies, have we thought about them? Have we worked on those people who actually suffered from losing? Or at the end of any competition, we only focus on people who won and disregard those who actually didn't win? Have we emphasized too much on winning in sports? Those are something we have to think about. And think about our society. We all emphasize so much on winning. And think about those bribery happen in the world of sports. Yeah? Think about it. And those who actually got hurt. There was a sad incident last year in Taiwan for the preparation of our selection of our judo representative for Taiwan. One of the athletes in judo who actually got injured, and now he's wheelchair bound for the rest of his life. He got hurt from the neck down. Have we paid enough attention to those preparation in hosting events? Have we paid enough attention to protection of the athletes? Think about it. And for those some of the sports that emphasize so much on the looking of the athletes, and some of the sports that demands that you don't look too big. And think about some of the athletes that actually suffer from eating disorders. Have we thought about those people? Or should we keep emphasizing so much on winning the sports? That's something that I think we need to think about it. The reason why I talk so much about negative on the sports is because of my personal area of study. I am in sports medicine, sports rehab. I do all the rehab for the injured athletes. And I work with them so closely after they got hurt. And it was a long way to come back to the competition. It's tough. And I have to work with them. I had to listen to them. I had to see them cry and see them laugh. And this is why I have so much feeling about some of the negative side of sports competition. But it's not so bad. Where should I go? Indeed, sports value can be discussed in many different aspects. Well, other than the actual competition, other than those injuries or those disorders that we may see on the preparation of a major competition, there are some other issues or aspects that we need to talk about. There are some health issues, there are some family, economical issues, social issues, gender equality, and politics. Think about it. Number one, a benefit. Let's talk about the health issues. People in this room here all understand the benefit of physical activities. So, some people may use exercise or workout to build their muscular fitness. Some people may say, well, I'll do some aerobic exercise to improve my cardiorespiratory fitness. And some people say, well, I'll try to control my weight. And that's the superficial part of it. And think about how those ideas, how those intentions for creating people's need, also creating some economical impact on us. For those of you who want to build your muscles, you may want to go to a fitness club or go to a sports club to look for a personal coach to help you. Think about this. Years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, there was no such title, there was a position called fitness coach way back 50 years ago. But due to the need that people want to build their muscular, so we have can you hear me? They says my voice is not loud enough. Yes, okay. Oh, this way better? Oh, sorry. I am sorry. I'm just not used to speak so loud in front of people. All right, so come back here. So think about those for the service of individual. They can help people building muscular fitness. They can help people improve their cardiovascular endurance or fitness. They can also help people control their weights. You provide your service, you provide your knowledge, you provide your professional expertise to people, and you make your own livings. And that's the value of sports. It's not just a competition. You also create a way of living for some of us here. And that's the good side of doing exercises or doing fitness. However, if someone is living in a lifestyle of insufficient physical activities, and the risk of living in the lifestyle of insufficient physical activity could be, and the study shows, for those who do not do enough physical activity, there's an increase of 20 to 30% mortality in those people. So should we do exercise? Of course, yes. Okay, for those who are weak, those fragile, I think in a few years, Taiwan is going to become an aged country. And that create another social issue of elderly care in our society. And I think that issue is not the sole issue in Taiwan. It goes everywhere. Later on, one way or the other, you will be there. Every society in the world will reach a stage of aging or aged. And that creates another issue for taking care of the athletes. And why should I bring it up? Because sports can be very beneficial to those people who, if they do not live in a sufficient physical activity lifestyle, it could be a problem. A condition called sarcopenia is the losing of a muscle value for those people who are 45 and older. And some of you here definitely are in that group. If you do not exercise enough, you are going to lose your muscles. And muscles are the main engine within our body to burn those extra calories. If you save too many calories in your body, you get, like what I do, you get fat. So it's not good for you anyway. So think about if somebody do not have enough exercise, the negative effect on your body. So people get weaker, and finally they go to hospital, and like I said earlier, the mortality rate will get higher. And then, of course, the healthcare costs increase tremendously. In Taiwan, our healthcare system is somehow not on the insurance side, but also on the more of a social benefit side of the care. So our Department of Health has come up a new project a few years ago. A new project a few years ago of collecting more fee from people to offset the deficit in our healthcare cost. Now think about it. If sports can decrease the risk of being ill, of being frail, why not? Why not do sports? So it's quite obvious. Besides, sports can also be linked with economy. Why is that? The classic mega event, hosting mega event, had a huge impact on the economic is the 1984 Los Angeles Olympic Games. That was the first game ever that actually benefit or profit at the end of the whole competition. So after that, most of the organizing committee for the Olympics tried to mimic the effort of marketing and the fundraising and everything else to make more money to build the city. And that's the model. So look around us. People try to fight to host a mega event. Even in Taiwan, years ago, I was the one who represented Taiwan, Kaohsiung, to bid for the university for the 2003, 2007, 2011. I was the one who failed the most times. But I'm very happy that we are here today. The sports bring us together in Taiwan. We bid for the games, not for the purpose of economic value, but for something else. We value the friendship, we value the youth, we value the exchange of culture. That's why I tell you the story of our Valentine's Day today. So people try to fight for the right to host event, and those are the following Olympic Games. In Seoul, 1988, they didn't make so much money, but they served the purpose of unifying their nationalism. That game pulled their countries together. They bring the Korean pride to their people. In 1992 in Spain, there was a very relaxing Olympics. And the archery, the lighting of the torch by an archer, that was a signified moment of the Olympic. In 96, the Atlanta Olympics, it was also called Coca-Cola Olympic. And money became the big issue, or the economic impact of the issue. Those are the following Olympics. But, for all the mega events, is the economic issue always on the positive side? Is it true? This was 2004 Athens. This was then. This is now. Think about it. So how much burden that hosting the event have put on the government and the people, and think about the economical status of Greece right now. Okay? So there are good things, there are bad things. In London Olympic, the organizing committee actually rebuilt the East London and remodeled it from a somehow standard infrastructure modern city to a very, very up-to-date, state-of-the-art city. And that's a good part about London Olympics. And look at 2010 Asian Games in Guangzhou. They actually built a new town around the Asian Games site. So there are always good and bad about making or hosting a mega event. It all depends on how we look at it. Okay? See, that's the real last year, from last year. Just a few months later, it became this. Is that sad? If we host an event just for the sake of making me happy, I just don't think it's worth of it. See, and there's always, Dad, think about Greece, the Athens. After the games, there was a tremendous amount of big hole of debt occurred. So, let's think about something else. That was unhappy side. Let's think about something else that the sports can bring us. The sport can also be a vehicle for social integration. I think about, look around here in Taiwan, in athletics or track and field. We do not have a history of strong performance in athletics in the past. But this time, we're doing so great that people love track and field again. And we bring people together and back to the stadium. Our history here shows most of the people do not go to the competition site. They rather stay home and watch TV. But look around here. Due to the great performance of our athletes, people come out. We unify together. We become, we have one common goal of supporting our athletes. That's something the sport can bring us. In the life of our society, there are gaps in between peoples with different economical status. Rich people may play. Oh, all right. Sure. Sorry. Some people live in a higher standard. Some people with a lower economical status may live in somehow poor status. And there's a gap. But sports bring us together. No matter what. They run on the same track. They swim on the same pool. They play on the same court, regardless the status of what you are and who you are, the color of your skin, the language you speak, the country you're from. And also the sports bring a great discipline to people. When those people fight on the street, they just keep fighting. But in the area of sports, we fight each other. But when the judge or the referee blow the whistle, we stop. That's the discipline that we can provide to our youngsters. There's a rule that we always follow. So that's why I say the sport can bring people together and also have a social integration force. And also, sport can provide a more education opportunity. In the US, the NCAA is probably the the perfect example for providing educational opportunity to those inner city students. They provide athletic scholarship. They do not allow school to buy athletes. There's a set of rules where and how you can recruit athletes to your universities. And look at those stories that we read. Some athlete become a physician. Some athlete become a lawyer. Some athlete become a good accountant, good professors. But look at their background. They probably would not have enough opportunity to receive those higher education. But due to the sport, due to their talents, they gain access to the higher education. They gain access to receive education and make their own living in the future. So, the athletics or the sports bring us more education opportunity. So, it creates a door for those people who are less fortunate when they were young. As long as they are willing to work on it, as long as they are willing to provide their talent in athletics, there's opportunity. Okay, some of the countries in the world, they also provide a huge amount of reward if you win, or if you win an Olympic medal. And Taiwan is one of the examples. We award a huge amount of monetary value to our athletes when they win a medal in the Olympics. So there's something that creates opportunities to people in the sports. And sports can be a family bond. It is. Think about the scene back home in your home country. Who actually fill up the stands in the elementary school competition? It's not, people don't actually pay that much money to go to watch the game. Most of the fans or the spectators are family members. Some of the youngsters, they don't actually talk to their parents. But when the parents come to see them compete, they hug each other. Okay? So, like in the US, the Major League Baseball, so-called the National Leisure Sports, they go to the ballpark, not just watch the ball game. They go to the ballpark because the family wants to go. Think about the kid here. Do you think he understands baseball? Probably not. But why is he there? Because the family wants to be there. That's the value of bringing the family together. This is a photo taken 2 years ago. Actually this year. This player, when she was a high school basketball player, when they played their national champion, the final games, when the players were introduced individually, they came out to the stage with one of their parents. Isn't that touching you? Okay, sometimes those kids don't actually talk to their parents, but the sports event can bring them together. And that's the value of sport that can bring the family members together. Okay. We chant, we laughed, we bring people from different culture, different background to the stands with a common goal. We root for the same team. And it's a personal story. When I went to school in America, there's a strong rivalry between my school and my rival school. I went to Indiana University, and our rival school is Purdue University. So I always root for the team that play against Purdue. So, just a joke. So, anybody who's from Purdue? I hope not. So, equality in sports. Sports also can bring attention to not just gender equality, but also equality for everything. Ever since in 1972, the Title IX was signed by President Nixon. It is a law talk about anti-discrimination and equal opportunity. Ever think about the right in different genders. So nowadays, in some of the universities in America, they need to provide exactly the same space, same amount of sports between male and female athletes. They have to, if they are federally funded university, they have to fund an equal amount of scholarship between male and females. And think about the current movement of gender equality in IOCs, even in our FISU, there's a gender equality committee. That's good. Years ago, who would have thought that women can compete? Who would have thought women can vote? That's not fair. But in sports, we talk about fairness in sports. The idea of fairness and equality bring the revolution of equality in different aspects. Not just the gender, so the race, the religions. Do I have too long? Sorry. So, and there's a study, Hungary. They talk about the women's position in the sports world, leader's position in sports world. Although it's improving, but the authors say now they still need to work on it. So there's hope. The movement of equality, not just in gender, but in everything, keeps on going. Politics. Oh, sorry. This is a direct quote from Mr. Wu, an IOC member from Taiwan, and he told me, sports politics is sometimes more political than the international political issues. And it is true. It is true. Well, think about somebody wants to vote for the International Sports Federation chair or president. And those political negotiations behind the scene are somehow more vigorous than the actual talking on the economical issues. And think about in late 1960s and early 1970s, when China used ping pong as their ways of communication with the rest of the world. Don't think about they just play ping pong, they just play table tennis. Table tennis is just a means of their communication, of showing their friendship. And also, the human right. The photo was taken in 1968, Mexico Olympics, when the human right of black was not so emphasis. After they won, this is a 200-meter gold medalist and bronze medalist. After they received the medal, they protest. They say, we want equality. So don't think politics do not play a role in sports. And don't say the sport cannot affect politics. There's a way to work around it. Okay, so the above mentioned issues are just the tip of an iceberg. There are so many aspects that we need to think about it. It's always front side and the back side. So I'm not, like I said earlier, I'm not smarter than any one of you here. But it's just like you to think about the different issues in sports value. So, that the saga of sports goes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Fong. Give a round of sports planning and let us think about it. And this is Q&A, so any question?
Yes.
Yeah, over there.
Good morning, I'm from South Africa. The question is directed to both our presenters. What are your views on the debate around high testosterone levels in women? It's a legal issue and it's a values issue. Can you hear?
the issue of what I didn't hear.
Would you speak louder, please?
Okay.
I cannot hear you at all.
Into the mic. Okay, I'm going to speak louder. The question is directed both as a legal matter as well as a values matter. The issue around high testosterone levels in female athletes. What are your views?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the question. Didn't catch the question.
Could you repeat it in some other words, because our
Is it
speaker
a legal
didn't catch
issue
the
or what?
idea of the
I'm
question.
sorry, I couldn't catch. Somebody can help me. I'll be more than happy to get your help. The gender idea.
Could you please repeat the
I don't think it's just a gender issue. We're dealing with issues around anti-doping, it's legal. You're dealing with issues of human rights, that's a value. So therefore my question, but if you're unable to respond to it, it's fine. So I'm going to try and repeat it differently. The issue of anti-doping should not be considered within a scenario where you cannot talk about other issues around, for example, high testosterone levels in female athletes. It's a values issue and it's a legal issue as well. So if you combine the two, you know what are the rights of any particular athlete that might experience a situation like that?
That is a tough question. Like I say, I am not a philosopher. I'm just share with you my views on sports. Whether or not it is a legal issue or ethic issue or philosophical debate issues, that I am sorry I cannot give you the answer right now. Okay?
Just excuse me if I clearly understand. You would like to ask, is it the doping a part of law or a part of interest of athletes? Okay. So I think it's both of them. It's a legal part and also it's important for the athletes. We can't say that we've got two separate ways. I think it's a one way, so we have to combine together everything. Yeah? It was this? That's great.
Okay. Any question? Yeah.
Just one more thing, thank you for the nice presentation. And for me, it was interesting what you say about the economical aspects and the social aspects, especially how you show what happened after the Olympic Games. And do you think it's a good idea that the International Olympic Committee should ask, the countries should ask the organizing, okay, you would like to organize, I don't know, the Olympic Games, but show us what we want to do after the games. Don't tell only about the games, but show us what we want to do after. Do you have any plans for the facilities, the sports facilities? Is it a good idea for you or not? And another one question, because you talk about the sport as a part of the social, as a part of the health life. Is it a good idea for the countries to say that if you want to have, if you want to be healthy, just do a sport. If not, just pay more for your insurance. Thank you.
First of all, I wouldn't dare to tell IOC what to do for their games. Of course, I agree that when a hosting city put on their proposal to host any mega event, not just the Olympic Games, they need to have an everlasting proposal or project to tell to tell the world that, or to tell the country actually, or the taxpayers, how they're gonna continue to use the facilities after the game is over. You know, we have to understand that building those stadiums or the gyms are mostly taxpayers' money. We need to think about, you know, the ever using the open to the publicness. It's not just for the game of competition only, and after the game it becomes a junkyard. That's totally, I agree that an IOC or all the other major federation sports federation, when you are awarding the hosting right to a city, you need to ask about the environments, you need to ask about the facility, how it's going to be preserved in the future. And in terms of the insurance you talk about, well, I think there's no correct answers. Like some of the athletes in American universities, they think they make money for the university. They want to have a bigger share of the incomes of the university sports. And they also want to have insurance about how they get injured. When they get injured, they need to get paid. And there, we have to find a balance in between. You know, I personally, I wouldn't encourage or wouldn't support the so-called money into the student sports. You know, in the professional sports, yes, nothing but money. But in the students or in educational setting, I would still stay on the pure side of sports. Thank you.
All right. Any question? Yeah, over there.
Please give microphone to the guest on the left side. Please raise your hands if you have questions, just we could see you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. This is Roberto. I have one comment and one query or question. Talking about 1998, okay, Olympic game in Korea. I think the very country, this survived, revived from Asian economic crisis, which originated from this very country, but they passed through the valleys of death. Now they are very strong, okay? You didn't mention about that, okay? I mean, that is, that crosses many fails. The second thing, during the period of the games, the Koreans, they are very keen, they're very strong, they're very lean. They wanted to win every single match. Okay. I would love to learn from you. What's your observation? What's your observation about that? They want every single inch of the medals. Thank you, sir. Roberto, at your services.
Yes, I'm sorry I didn't talk that much about the process of the Seoul City, the preparation of the Olympics, because due to the time constraint. And from my personal understanding, that the preparation of the games was difficult during the time of economic growth for the country of South Korea. Yet the people believe they can do it. So they put all the resources together in the hope they will provide the best ever Olympic to the world. And they did. That process alone brings the pride of people in Korea. And also during the process of preparation, the economic growth also flies. And it also changed life of Korean people. That's why I say it was a very successful Olympic for the country. But due to the time constraint, I could not go any further. And again, I'm not a historian. Thank you.
Any question? No one? Okay.
Oui. Je peux?
Oh, over there.
Ok, c'est Omar Abdelkarim du Niger. Je parle français. Donc, j'aimerais poser la question au professeur, s'il peut nous dire un peu l'impact économique et social des universités organisées par la FISU. Merci.
He said, can you tell us about the political and social and the economic and political impact of universiades on cities that are host cities.
In the political side of the hosting event, I think the deputy mayor of Taipei, the former deputy mayor of Taipei, is here in the stage. He was one who actually starting to organize the game, and he may be the one who can answer the question about political issues. But with our current mayor, I would say from my personal observation, he didn't put that much emphasis on the preparation of the university. That's my personal observation. But later on, he says that, well, this is a big event and may help him in one way or the other. So he put all the resources together. Yet again, my observation is he probably I shouldn't say this. I shouldn't go to personal. That's wrong. I'll stop here. Yeah, it's a difficult situation to talk about in the public about a mayor's or someone's character or someone's view on political. However, let's look at the bright side of Taipei hosting the university. We actually pull the city, all the people together. And that's my hope. The whole operation of hosting any event, the style, the level of the scale of the event will stay here in Taiwan ever. We shouldn't go back to the so easy, so-called simple way of hosting event for our athletes. It's my hope that in the future, whenever we are hosting our national events, we are using the same scale of operation for our athletes. They will also create another way of economical impact. Think about if we need to have a computer system that will score, that will send out all the image or the video, the films to the family, to the homes. How much upgrade of our infrastructure? That would also create a positive impact on our society. So that's how much I can say right now.
All right. Over there.
Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and Professor San. I'm a Nigerian, and Jose Clifford is my name. Sir, I want to ask your views on this. In spite of all the gains and values which sports purpose to give to the country that is hosting the event, why is it that the taxpayers in most cases go about protesting against the hosting of the games? Why? What are your views, sir?
I'm sorry. Could you say more detail for your question?
I say, sir, in most cases, in spite of the gains and values derivable from the hosting of a major sporting tournament, and in spite of the development it's going to bring to the country, but the average taxpayer on whose money will be spent on the host most probably protest against the host. We had a case during the Brazilian game. We learned that during the Olympics, there was a protest. People protested against the hosting. I'm saying, what are your views about it, sir? Thank you very much.
If you ask about the revenue generated by the Olympic Games and who used those profits after the Games, I think there is a so-called solidarity fund from the IOC. They would distribute the money to different countries, and which is good. But I'm talking about the hosting countries, and for those hosting countries or cities, how they use or spend their revenues. I have no idea. You know, I have no idea how the city of Athens spend their money after the games. I have no idea how Beijing spend their money after the Olympics in 2008. So I'm sorry I cannot answer you the question. However, if for all the organizing committee, they have to pay a fee to IOC or even to FISU, and that would go to an equation or a committee that would oversee the spending of the money. How they spend the money, I'm sorry, I don't know.
All right, last one.
Thank you, Professor. I can't impress you more about your wonderful speech. So let me ask you one simple question. What is the slogan, just in simple words, the slogan or even motto for this year in my beloved country for this game? Yes, just simple words. Slogan or motto?
I don't recall. There is one, but I don't recall.
Anyway, we could make it for youth, Y-O-U-T-H, and if we can put for you, something like
that's
that.
What I say. That's my view.
That's the spirit, okay?
Yes.
I couldn't impress your wonderful speech, so I would love to contribute myself to remind you, Roberto, and your services.
I think I have, dug a big hole and jumped into it myself, and it's just because when we talk about value, there's no standard answers, and I just creating a big hole for myself, and I cannot get out of it.
All right. Okay.
Good morning. Thank you for your explanation about social and economical issues. I am from Ecuador, and I would like to ask her, after FISU, what is the plan of Taipei for the everlasting project of the facilities?
That I don't know, because I am not on the organizing committee. I just don't know. I think the new buildings, the new facilities built for the university are, one of them is the tennis center in Taipei. And the other one, a new one, is the swimming pool. That's a simple swimming pool located on my campus. And those two swimming pools will be donated to two different high schools. And they will use those pools for their usage for the swimming lessons and also for trainings. And for the tennis center, I know there are going to be a company that will run for this facility, providing facility to the most common people to play, and also provide lessons to those youngsters who want to learn. That's how much I understand.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor Fang. Give us a lot of concept and idea for tangible and intangible sports. So I think we have to go next step. And thank you our host and our speaker. Okay.
So thank you very much for this session. We have a small gift to our guest speaker. Please take this gift from FISU. From our discussions and many questions from the audience, we have understood that the question of values is very important for us. So we can continue after the break. And after the post session, which will be in the during the break, at the coffee break in the next door building. Thank you very much. Thank you to our guests, our speakers, to my colleague from organizing committee, and see you after the break.